Hi, everyone. My name is Leeta Scott. Thank you, Andrew, and everyone for inviting me to come and speak to you today. As Andrew said, I run the AARP Seattle Fraud Watch Helpline, and I've been doing that for about 5 years now. I really appreciate being asked to join you today because frauds and scams are targeted to everyone, and especially the 50-plus population. So your best protection is prevention, is really the gist of all of this. So having said that, let's get started. So let me tell you a few things about the helpline. That's our number that you can contact us right there. It's available to everyone. You don't have to be an AARP member to utilize our services. There are 2 call centers, one here in Seattle, which is in SeaTac, and then we have one in Denver, Colorado. You can call to get assistance if you're not sure about whether a call, an email, or even a piece of mail that you receive doesn't seem, you're not quite sure what to make of it, whether it could be real or fraudulent. You can also call us if you've experienced fraud or been scammed and need help and resources. We receive calls from all over the country, and the helpline is staffed with trained volunteers. They are there to help people, and they really enjoy doing that, providing that assistance to folks. Just to kind of give you a sense of the volume of calls that we handle, in April we handled about 2,000 calls. Calls have definitely increased because everybody's at home, and scammers are able to get in touch with folks. So fraud, it's really a huge problem. It's a growing problem. Losses from scams, they're reaching over 50 billion a year, and that number is probably on the lower end of the scale. So I'd like to talk a little bit about what the secret is to scammers, how they are so successful at taking money from people and getting information. So scammers they use a method, and it puts you in what's called a heightened emotional state. And what exactly does that mean? Well, I'd like to give you some examples. I think examples are a good way for people to understand something a little bit more thoroughly. So let me give you some. Say that you are ill, you're fighting some type of a disease, or you're caring for a loved one. You're not on your total game. You're tired. You've got a lot of things that you're dealing with. That makes you prone to not necessarily making good decisions if you're contacted by somebody that sounds like they could be legitimate. Other examples can be you recently lost a loved one. We get calls from people all the time who are recent widows, and they're vulnerable, and so they can easily be fooled. You're asleep and you're awakened by a phone call. A lot of people kind of get caught off guard, caught by surprise by scammers. You can get excited because you think that there's a prize that you won or a sweepstakes. It's very easy to get caught up in emotions, and scammers are very good at this. They can also frighten you, heighten your emotional state that way by threatening you. A lot of times we get calls from folks saying that the scammer said that they were going to be arrested, or their Social Security benefits were going to be compromised or taken away. These are frightening things, and especially with Social Security, that's a lifeline for a lot of folks. Another example of heightened emotional state is a call that you might get that a family member has been in an accident, or possibly they've been arrested and money needs to be sent right away. All of these things make scammers successful in getting money from you. The ways that scammers contact you and use these ploys and these getting your emotions aroused are through the phone. That's really the most common method, especially for older folks. You know, they're around at home, and you know, they're going to answer their phone. Other ways would be mail is a common way. Sweepstakes, fake sweepstakes come in the mail, fake letters from businesses, that sort of thing. They come through computers with pop-ups or emails. And in more rural areas, they actually do knock on your door, show up at your doorstep kind of things. Not so much in cities. Some of the common scams, they're kind of categorized, and some of them are some that have been around for years. And what they do is they change them up a little bit. They're very good at creating new scenarios and putting new things in place, and they're very effective. They're all really imposter scams, but we kind of divide them up by these categories. So there's an imposter as a government entity, such as Social Security, Medicare, even the Census at this point. Or they pretend to be a legitimate business. Think of Amazon, you know, eBay, things like that. Even fake ads on Craigslist, that sort of thing. Other types of scams involve your computer, where you might get a pop-up. Something's wrong with your computer. I mentioned family emergency a little bit earlier, where they contact you and you think that a family member is in an emergency situation and needs help. Finally, there's sweepstakes, lotteries, grants, where you think you've won a prize or a big load of money. All very enticing and exciting. And kind of new on the scene, or especially with the coronavirus happening, health products, free trial offers are also ways that scammers are fooling us and tricking us, trying to get information and money. I'd like to go over some important things. I talked about prevention is the key. To keep yourself safe from scammers. So we'll go through some of those things right now. So government imposter calls are particularly on the rise right now. Things to remember is that the government really doesn't have a phone book with all of our phone numbers in it. They don't call on the telephone. They primarily contact us through US mail. So if you get a call saying that they're calling you from Social Security, you should just hang up, because they don't call you. If you get a call and they say they're from the IRS, again, they only notify you through the mail. You can actually check that number, call the IRS directly to see if they've been in touch with you. And you'll see that the IRS number that we have there ends in the number 1040. Which is a form that we're all pretty familiar with. Medicare, they're pretending to be Medicare, and they'll also provide a number for you to call, which you shouldn't use. You should actually look up the number from a legitimate source, or you can even call us at the call center and we can validate those things for you. So the government imposters that we're hearing in the call center, the big one right now is Social Security. They're pretending that maybe your benefits have been, might be stopped, which completely scares people, if you can imagine, or that your benefits are compromised because your number was used in a crime, which makes no sense. They also pretend to be the IRS. Medicare is a big one right now. They're trying to get Medicare numbers from folks to perform Medicare fraud. And they're also posing as people trying to get information from you with the 2020 census, which is released. Social Security, the scammers were using that. That was really big in the call center prior to the virus outbreak. But Social Security, again, I cannot say this enough, they don't contact you by phone. And you should never really provide your Social Security to anyone over the phone if you don't know really who they are. They might be saying, you know, I'm calling from your bank and I need to validate your Social Security number. Well, to open an account, you have to provide it. So be very protective of your Social Security number. And if you haven't already done so, create an online Social Security account that just secures your benefits and prevents them from being shifted or sent to a different bank account rather than yours. Imposter IRS, that was a popular thing prior to the Social Security government imposter scam. Again, the IRS only contacts you by mail, and you can call them to verify if you've received some sort of communication from them. There's also a lot of folks online who are pretending to work for the IRS as fake tax preparers. So we always recommend that if you have a question about the validity of something, you look for ways to verify it. And again, one of those is by calling us. Also, filing your taxes early helps, prevent fraud with your tax returns. Medicare scams. Now, our Medicare numbers are not affiliated anymore with our Social Security numbers, which is great. That cuts down on a lot of fraud and identity theft that can happen. However, you still need to be protective of it and not give it out over the phone or email to folks who are just calling you and asking you to verify it. Again, Medicare notifies you by mail. The explanation of benefits that you get from Medicare if you've recently had a doctor's visit or something, some type of procedure, the explanation of benefits is an important document for you to check just to make sure that any of the procedures or anything that's on there is something that actually has been done for you. And if it isn't, the number that I have below here, SHIBA is the Washington State Medicare information number that you can use to find out about different aspects of Medicare or to report and find out what to do if you're a victim of fraud. Somebody's used your Medicare number fraudulently. And SHIBA stands for State Health Insurance Benefit Advisors. And so that's a good number to have if you have questions about your Medicare.
Leeta, if I can interrupt real quickly, we have a question.
Okay.
The question is from an individual who says, last month I received my first extortion email asking for Bitcoin. I reported that to the Fraud Watch Network, and now I get these emails several times a week. Should I report each of them? How much of my personal information might be compromised, and how can I protect myself?
Well, I think probably with that, if they can, if they're getting them in their email, they can block, use their email blocking system so that they're not getting those emails. It might be coming from the same source, and so there's ways they can, block those emails. I don't think if they haven't given any information and they're just getting an email, it's called phishing. And so they're trying to get you to respond to those emails. So I recommend deleting them and also blocking them so that you don't continue to get those. Anytime you see something that's talking about Bitcoin, it's a pretty good guess that it's a scam. So it's good that you detected that.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. Good question. So the other imposter scams that we're seeing are the Census. And I filled mine out about maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago. So they contact you through the mail, and if you're not comfortable going to the website to fill it out, or you don't have a computer, there is a paper form available, and there's a number for you to call on the letter that you get so that you can fill it out by paper. The thing to remember is that the Census doesn't ask, for your social security number, your bank account, credit card numbers. It's not going to ask you personal information. It's mostly going to focus on broad categories, say your ethnicity, how many folks live in your household. So if somebody's saying that they're from the Census and they're asking you for personal information, birth date even, it might ask that, but it's not going to ask you, it's not going to drill down to very specific things. So be wary of anybody asking you for that type of information if it's census related. Also, there isn't a fee for taking the census. And we've also had that as a scam as well. I'll tell you, they're very clever, these guys. So we're hearing a lot of folks getting emails and phone calls, mostly emails, and they're pretending to be from Amazon, eBay, Apple, Microsoft, Chase, and the list just goes on and on. They even pretend to be AARP sometimes. What they're doing is they're trying to get you to respond and provide information. A lot of times they'll say, well, you've got this problem with your account, and the way that you can fix that is by going and buying gift cards or paying us this money, that sort of thing. They also are pretending to be financial institutions, loans, your bank, credit card companies. I get texts fairly frequently from a bank that I don't even have an account with, saying that there's a problem with my account. So that's something that I just delete immediately. They also pretend to be healthcare insurance providers. So you have to make sure that if you get a call or an email from somebody that says, they're with your healthcare company, turn your card over, validate that through the information that's on your health card rather than any number and information that they provide, because they're just going to give you a scam number. Family emergencies, it's kind of more well known as the grandparent scam. And I don't know if anyone's experienced this one, but, and actually my mother-in-law got this one. Basically, a scammer will call you, and a lot of times it's in the early morning or late at night where that heightened emotional, stress is happening. You're tired, or you're not, reacting as you with all of your senses or whatever. And they'll say that you have a family. It could be saying that they're your grandson, saying that they were traveling, and they got in a situation where they got pulled over by the police, and they've been arrested because they didn't know that their traveling companion had had drugs or something. It's crazy. And so the next thing you know, they're arrested and they need you to send bail money immediately. Well, that's very frightening to somebody thinking that their family member might be in trouble. They'll also tell them not to contact mom or dad um, because they'll get in a lot more trouble. Well, people need to verify this. Generally speaking, this is a very popular long-term scam. Um, and anytime somebody's asking you for money in an emergency situation like that, you should step back and think about that. I really can't think of that many emergencies where you need to pull out your wallet immediately. Even going to the emergency room at the hospital, thank God they're not asking us to open our wallets, at that point. But that's just something to remember. Especially the way they ask you to pay for things is some signs. And we'll go through that in just a few seconds. There's a lot of health products out there, miracle cures, and you should just be really skeptical about things that you see on television, especially products and supplements. A lot of times they're not of any use or value. And another thing to be aware of is free trial offers. A lot of people sign up for those, and we get a lot of calls in the call center that they signed up for a face cream or an eye care, and they got this free sample, but they also got, they started getting billings and products, finding out that they just signed up to have, a subscription for 12 months or something to receive products at $80. So you have to really watch the fine print, and there really aren't that many things in life that are free, so to watch out for those. Also, they are pretending to be from the CDC, the World Health Organization. If you're getting emails around that, I would be very skeptical about where those are coming from. I would like to mention COVID-19 things that are happening, because scammers are obviously using that as ways to get into people's wallets. Yesterday, I had about 5 calls on the helpline where people had ordered masks off the internet, and the websites, when they went, once they hadn't received product after a couple of weeks, the websites were dead. Basically, they went nowhere, which means they just lost any money that they provided. Depending on how they pay, you've got to go through all these steps to try to prove that you're a victim of fraud and all of that. So just be very careful. Try to only order things like that off of websites that are from companies that are well known. But anyway, there are no known medicines or supplements that can, prevent or treat coronavirus right now. So it's careful, just be really skeptical of anything that says that it can prevent or cure. Always check with your doctor about products, that are untested. Again, don't give your Medicare number out to anyone beyond your trusted healthcare providers. That's a very important thing to know right now. And again, check with your healthcare provider before you make a purchase, because there's just a lot of stuff out there that's really not helpful, and then you wind up wasting valuable dollars. So I would like to mention also that tech scams is what we call them, or fix your computer. There isn't any way that somebody knows what's going on with your computer if they're not sitting right beside you. If you get a phone call or a pop-up on your computer saying it's from Microsoft, best thing that you can do is power your computer off. A lot of times those pop-ups will freeze your computer, so do try powering it off. A lot of times that'll take care of it. only allow access to your computer to somebody that you've contacted and you feel like it's a trustworthy thing. I really say if you need to have something done to your computer, it's really best to maybe check in with a relative, or take it to a store, which I know is very hard right now. At some point, I'm hoping that can happen again, but you just have to be really careful checking with. There's a lot of scammers who are out there saying that they can fix your computer, so do beware of that. Sweepstakes, lotteries, and grants. I want to mention this because it's another way that your emotions can get out of hand, because if you think you've just won a big pile of money, who doesn't get excited about that? But when I talk to people who have lost money from a sweepstakes scam, we talk about, well, did you even enter a contest or a sweepstakes? And they say, well, no. And then you have to say, well, how is it that you think that you won something if you haven't entered a contest? And I think, again, there's this sweep of emotions that happens. So you get very excited and you kind of forget the logic of things. The one thing that happens with these types of scams is they're going to tell you that you have to pay money to get your prize. You have to pay taxes on it. We don't pay taxes on income ahead of time, thank God. And also, they'll say that there are fees and all kinds of things that you need to pay in order to get your prize. Well, that's not the way sweepstakes are legally run. So whenever you hear, and this is important, anytime somebody wants you to pay for something by gift card, wire transfer, or cash sent in the mail, those are clear signs of a scam. So gift cards, are primarily there for people to buy, to give to family, friends, or whatever, to buy something nice for themselves. They're not really supposed to be used to pay somebody off. And that's, scammers like to use gift cards because you can't trace them, and it's money in their pocket very quickly. So if you can just remember that, anytime somebody asks you to pay for something with a gift card, that's not a very good sign. And also Western Union, unfortunately, has been used a lot through scammers. If you're sending cash, there's no way to get that money back. So that's another sign as well. I'd like to go over some reminders, things that will help you as we go forward with calls or emails that you might receive. Use your caller ID as a tool. If you have caller ID and you see the number pop up, it's not exact science. They can also spoof numbers, but if you don't recognize the phone number, I recommend that you don't answer it. I don't answer a lot of calls on my phone anymore if I don't recognize the number. And generally they don't leave a message, which is another sign of a scammer. And if you do get a voicemail, don't return calls if you don't know the source. Same thing with emails. If you see something that looks odd or there's a lot of misspelling, just delete it. Hang up on callers who are demanding money, personal information, or gift cards. And so there's one thing I would like to mention as well about scammers. A lot of people say, well, I like to talk to them on the phone, and I like to get them angry and waste their time. And I really don't recommend that you do that. And the reason is, they will sell your name and number to their buddies. It's another way for them to make money. It's another source of income. And so if you think you're getting back at them, you're wasting their time, what they're doing is just, you're going to increase the number of calls that you get, unfortunately. So I don't think that's a very effective way of dealing with them. So if you can kind of keep that in mind as well. Finally, these are the key things that you really want to guard. These are the things that that can get you into trouble and lose money or information. Your date of birth is important. If you put that with your social security number, if scammers have those two combinations, they can create an identity. I recommend that you don't share your birth date or your social security number, your Medicare number, or if you have Medicaid. Those numbers are also things that you should not provide to anybody outside of the healthcare field. Your credit card numbers, bank account numbers, and passwords. These are all things that you should guard as much as possible. And these are ways that you can keep yourself safe from scammers. So just to end this, I can also answer other questions if there are any, but I just want to reiterate that's our number at the top of the screen, the Fraud Watch Network helpline. That number is 877-908-3360. We aren't taking calls live. What we are doing is we're answering our phones from our home. We're returning calls from home. And we do try to get back with folks within a 24-hour period if you have a question, and we're always happy to help. That Sheba helpline number, if you have Medicare questions or you need some help sorting something out on your explanation of benefits, that's a great number to call. It's localized for the state of Washington, and it'll get you through to Medicare a lot quicker than the Medicare hotline number. And also, if you are thinking of making an investment, that last number there, the FINRA Senior Hotline, is an excellent resource to check to see if an investment broker that you're considering working with to make an investment, you can make sure that they're a legitimate certified broker registered through that hotline. So I highly recommend that number if you're still, doing some investing. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Leeta, for this information. So helpful for all of us. I'm going to just open the forum again. Does anyone have any questions for Leeta at this time? We will be happy to answer those if we have any other questions. So we'll just leave it a moment while people have an opportunity to use their chat feature. You can hover over the bottom of your screen, the black bar there. You'll see the chat feature button. You can just select that and type your question in. Make sure it's to the public. Okay, I think we answered our big question, and that was an important one earlier, so I thank the individual that asked that very important question. Again, just to remind everyone, we did record this, so we will be able to send that to anyone that didn't join us right at 2 o'clock when we got started. There were a few that joined late, and that's no problem. We will also email the slides if you would like those. I think a lot of people do have those already, but if you didn't receive those. And finally, we will be sending a survey shortly after today's webinar, and it's really important to us to get those surveys back. Just be honest, what worked well, what didn't, what would you like more information on, things like that. We're still experimenting the best way to prevent our information during the COVID restrictions. We want to make sure everybody has a good experience. Again, my name is Andrew Harris, Community Relations Director for the Gardens at Town Square. I thank you so much for joining us today. And again, if you'd like to email me questions, you can do so, andrew.harris, Harris, @eraliving.com. All right, with that, I will go ahead and sign off for today. Thank you all for joining us, and I have a wonderful afternoon.